Greetings everyone, I am Dr. Wolf and I just saw Aladdin and I'm not entirely sure what else to say. It's just First off, I want to state that I grew up with the original animated feature. And yeah, I must have watched that at least a dozen times with the rest of my family on VHS. It is immensely quotable, immensely fun, and my goodness, the music just makes you want to get up and dance. And even more than that, it just had so much heart, especially towards the end. It's something that I can appreciate then, and something that I can appreciate decades from now. With that in mind, I think that a lot of people are going to look at the new Aladdin and consider it to be terrible because it has a really hard time measuring up to the original. And yeah, that can be fair. At the same time, I don't think that's really fair at all. This is trying to appeal to your nostalgia. This is attempting to go through many of the same story beats, and yet it is attempting to do a few of its own things as well. Now, when I compare the new Aladdin with, say, the new Beauty and the Beast, I will say this is a step up. This actually does have a bit more merit in existing. And yeah, I think I did have more fun with this. But when I think of another recent live-action remake, say Jungle Book, that went off into a number of different story beats where I can safely say there are reasons why I'd want to go back and watch the original animated feature, and yet there are parts about the new one that make me think, yeah, that's worth sitting down and watching too. I can't really say the same about Aladdin. First off, this movie is not entirely sure what to do with its pacing. There are some story beats that it goes through really quick. Like, wait a second, they went through all of that in just a few minutes. Oh my goodness, that took the first movie like 20 minutes, didn't it? And then in other parts, it slows down and tries to give time for the characters to breathe. And at times it takes a little too long for the story to get going again. So at some moments you'll wish that the movie slowed down a bit, and other moments you're thinking, can we move things along? I want to see what else is going to happen here. And yet, there are a couple of things that they decided to try, differentiating from the original, which, okay, that's slightly interesting. Not great, but far from terrible. I know a lot of people went into this movie thinking only to the trailers, and especially so many people talking about how Will Smith really doesn't look or sound or feel like Robin Williams. And yeah, this isn't Robin Williams. This is Will Smith. It's really, really hard to put that out of your mind when looking at this, because yeah, I grew up with Aladdin. I loved watching it as a kid, at least a dozen times on VHS with my family. It's hard to separate that. But if you can, I would say Will Smith is not terrible. He's actually kind of entertaining. It's not Robin Williams levels of entertaining because not just the voice work, but the animation that went with that character is absolutely fantastic. It had you rolling in the aisles, whether as a kid or as an adult. But I don't think that the look or the feel or even the comedy of Will Smith has nothing about it that's worth enjoying. Because, yeah, when Will Smith is trying to be Robin Williams, it's okay, it's not great, it's not bad, but eh. But when Will Smith is trying to be Will Smith, there are certainly times that had me chuckling, even laughing out loud. And yeah, I actually got a little invested. I honestly think that out of all the elements in this new Aladdin, Will Smith is probably the best. Will Smith is probably the one that'll keep you the most engaged. Not just in the comedy, not just in the music, but even in the story. He takes more time trying to talk to Aladdin and not just saying you should be yourself, but also warning about all the others that have come before him asking for great wealth or great power. And yeah, it looked like it was going somewhere interesting with it. I like that story setup, and I mostly like where they ended up with it. Adding to that element in the original film, I think is a good move here, because this is a longer movie. I think it's around 2 hours, and the original animated film was about 90 minutes. And yeah, you do need to find something about the original story to keep working on if you want to have that longer running time. In that respect, yes, I think that does work. Not great, but far from terrible. It's something that kept me engaged. Aladdin, on the other hand, he's pretty dry. He doesn't have that much about him that really keeps me wanting to see more. Unless he is on screen with Will Smith, I don't think there's much about him that really stands out at all. He doesn't sing as well as the original. In fact, there's a couple of moments where I think they needed to do another take. He has his interactions with Abu, which, because he's much more lifelike, they can't give him that much expression in his face. Therefore, he's not that entertaining either. I think the carpet did okay because, yeah, much like with the original, he has no face, and therefore you have to really be creative in order to give him expression. And yeah, it worked fairly well. I can see either one of those, the animated or the new one, working pretty much the same. But then you have characters like Jafar and Iago. And yeah, Jafar was one of my favorite villains growing up. He was always so slimy and underhanded, and even a little creepy with how he was trying to get Jasmine to fall in love with him. I mean, ugh. It's a much more memorable character than I'm not entirely sure what they were doing with this new version. Jafar, they try to introduce the fact that he grew up on the streets of Agrabah too, that he was a thief just like Aladdin. They were setting up that connection early on, and I thought, okay, that's slightly interesting. Where are they going with this? It's pretty much just in a couple of places that it really makes a difference. To show that Jafar is able to pickpocket the lamp without Aladdin noticing, which, okay, and making him feel like he needs to be the most powerful man in the room because of his upbringing. I think they had some merit in where they were going with it, but didn't really stick the landing as well as they could have. And then Iago. I don't think he has much character at all here. I mean, Gilbert Gottfried in the original, he can be irritating, but that was kind of the point. He was supposed to be a character that you'd love to hate, that you'd love to see smash into a wall. It was part of the comedy. And yeah, that might have worked in this new version if they made him that much more expressive, but not with the story they had in mind. I honestly still wish that the villains had much more of a villainous persona, because yeah, he's generally evil, the two of them together, but I can't think of a reason why I prefer this over the original animated film. Now, as for a character like, say, Jasmine, they were intentionally trying to take a different direction with her character. They were trying to make her more independent. They wanted to give her more of a role in the story than just being a damsel in distress, especially in the final battle of the first film. There really isn't as much for her to do. I think they had some ideas on where they wanted to take this desire to be sultan, this desire to rule over and protect her people. But aside from maybe one speech and wanting to say to Aladdin, well, this is what's most important about Agrabah, the people, I don't know exactly what the lesson was intended here. That you can be a ruler if you're willing to speak up about it, if you're willing to take a stand. It's a start, certainly, but I don't know if there's much more that they were allowed to show other than that one speech to a captain of the guard. So I am grateful that they tried to do something different, that it wasn't just a retread of the original character, and yet I think I'm just gonna go back and enjoy the original character more, because I think she was allowed to have more fun with her role. Like I said about Aladdin, how he's pretty dry in this, and there isn't a whole lot that stands out about him other than a couple of scenes where he's awkward. At least with Jasmine, they give her more to do. But I'm not entirely sure of what the movie is attempting to teach with that. Like I said before, Aladdin is... it's not something that is worth rushing out to see. With that said, I am grateful that it got made. And here's why. Over the many months leading up to this film, there was so much discussion surrounding the trailers, surrounding the characters, surrounding the musical numbers that were released early, and plenty of people were saying, oh, this just doesn't compare to the original, oh, this will never be a replacement for our childhood nostalgia. I actually did appreciate the videos I found all about Robin Williams and how he got into the role and what gave it so much heart to begin with. There are a number of different projects that I've found in the months leading up to this new Aladdin that made me much better appreciate the original. And in that respect, in that small respect, I think that it's okay for this new film to exist, because it awakened so much nostalgia for the original, and it got people talking about the original, and it got people invested into why the original had so much heart and passion put into it. And while yes, this new movie does seem a bit of a cash grab in that respect, appealing to our nostalgia, I can at least appreciate that. It is not a terrible movie, as much as some people might claim it is because they have so many fond memories of the original. This is not a terrible movie. I liked Will Smith when he wasn't trying to be Robin Williams, but trying to be Will Smith. I liked, believe it or not, some of the dance numbers in this, because even though you can't get away with as much as a fully 2D animated film, there are certain parts of these musical numbers that actually were impressive when they can really get into it and have all these hundreds of extras all intermingling with each other. I think my wife put it best that it's kind of like watching a Bollywood. I don't know how many of you know what a Bollywood movie is, but a Bollywood dance number in that respect. And yeah, I can see that. There are certain aspects of those big flashy dance numbers that do give that vibe, and in a good way. I think that this new version is worth seeing. But like I mentioned before, not something worth rushing out. Not something that you may even need to pay at the expensive theater to see. It reawakened my enjoyment for the original, while also presenting a few elements which were different from the original and I did enjoy. Many other aspects which either felt dry or I really didn't know where they are intended to go with. And yeah, there are several characters that really made me wish that they could be as expressive, as entertaining, as fun as the original. But you know what? It still got me to laugh. It still kept me invested at times. And yes, if it gets more people to better appreciate the original, I'm okay with that. I think it's better than Beauty and the Beast live action, because while it's still middle of the road, Beauty and the Beast took several directions which just did not work at all in my opinion. But it's not as good as, say, Jungle Book, where I can see reasons why I'd want to go watch the original and why I'd want to go watch the new one. I don't know if I'd go back and watch this newest Aladdin more than the once, but hey, for what it's worth, I can tell there is some passion put into this. And for what it's worth, leading up to this film, it awakens so many other people's appreciation for the original. And I'm okay with that. For anyone who has seen the new Aladdin and may have grown up with the original Aladdin, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what they did different and what you found worthwhile about it. Until next time, I am Dr. Wolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.